Been a lot of talk about what's happening on July 26th, but what's actually going to happen and how does the FRCP 26F conference actually work? Well, we're about to find out. Yo, what up guys? It's Derp here with another video about the Dark and Darker court case. This time we're doing a quick breakdown of the FRCP 26 conference, otherwise known as the Early Case Conference. As always, I'm not a lawyer. All of this information is based on my own research and conversations I've had with people who I would consider experts. What I'm going to cover is the FRCP 26F conference. What do we usually learn during this conference? When does this happen? Can it be pushed back? What happens next? And a quick TLDR of the timeline update. So before we get into the video, as always, I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been watching live, subscribing, leaving comments, joining the guild. A huge thank you to everybody shown here for all the supers, the membership, and all of your support. I can't do this without you guys. Yeah, let's get right into the video. So what is the FRCP 26 conference? So this is what I've been calling the early case conferences for some time now. And first and foremost, we need to kind of understand what the FRCP conference, otherwise known as the Early Case Conference, is. So I'm not going to read the whole rules on camera. It would take way too long. But if you want to, you can pause here and read through it yourself. I have a link to the Cornell Law right here that goes over the rule in depth and what these conferences are. But yeah, so this is all according to Cornell Law, so you can kind of pause it and read through this here if you want to. But yeah, I'm going to kind of skip reading that just to summarize it. To summarize the page above, both parties have to meet up and go over their plan for the case. This includes things like discovery, information on witnesses, what type of information they want to submit, how that information can be verified, and how various motions various motions they want to file or discuss or argue before discovery starts and gets into trial. It also is the first real opportunity the parties have to discuss a settlement while having the judge in the room. So essentially, they will all be in the same room, whether that's through a video conference or in person. That's the defense, the plaintiff, and the judge. They're going to sit down and discuss all the basic rules of the case, as well as ask to argue specific motions or hold pretrial hearings for specific things that relate to discovery. However, this doesn't mean everything can or will be heard that day, as this process can actually take a few days to several days. The court doesn't have time to mess around and will decide to push things back or do things early if necessary, as seen as in all of the motions that have been filed in the past, like 14 to 20 days, right? Everything from when Iron Mace responded to the summons that's been filed up until this point on the 26th is basically part of the pre-trial conferences. It's all early motions that happen pre-trial, pre-discovery, and lead up to discovery. It's all stuff that's important to moving forward with discovery. So that's all technically part of it. So what's important to the release of Dark and Darker is the motions that are filed for discovery, right? So this is the most likely time for Iron Mace to argue the request for an injunction against Nexon. It's also the most likely time to argue the motion for the case to be dismissed. This doesn't mean the discussions will take place on the 26th, just that it's the first real opportunity for these things to be discussed with the judge in the room, and it's also the most likely chance for them to be decided upon unless the court feels that it needs more time to make a decision or there's some kind of extenuating circumstances or a court emergency. We do need to prepare for delays should the judge feel they need more time or one of the parties try to push forward new arguments during these conferences. Again, it's unlikely, but it is entirely possible that these individual motions get pushed a little farther back while discovery moves forward. In that case, the motion to stay discovery will probably be decided upon on or before the 26th. it's a little late to decide it before the 26th. I checked Pacer, nothing new was really there. What do we usually learn during the FRCP conference? The very best way to understand what we learned in the FRCP conference is to simply look at the rules as stated by Cornell Law. So feel free to pause again and read the rules below, or join my Patreon and download the script. You could read them there, or just follow that link that I gave out for free above. So to save time, I'm just going to summarize it in a moment. For those of you guys reading, I highlighted 2 paragraph markings. So if you want to stop and read that there, feel free. But I'm going to kind of just scroll through this really quickly, so you guys feel free to pause it here. So, in short, the above page outlines what can be talked about in the conference. Most of it has to do with the rules of discovery, as well as what information the parties plan on providing, when they plan on providing that information, and how that information will be verified. So this is everything from like witness testimony to documents to evidence to they start preparing all of that stuff. That's what's called discovery. So when they start going through and preparing all that stuff, they have to stipulate what, when, and how, and why it's important, right? And they do all that stuff starting now on the 26th. So most of, if not all of it, has to do with the rules of discovery, as well as the information the parties plan on providing when they plan all of that. However, there is one thing that is super important, and that is the clause in Section F that states that any other orders that the court should issue under Rule 26C or 16B and C need to be argued on that day, or on or around that day. They have about a 14-day window. This includes things that might impact discovery, such as injunctions, the stay of discovery, or the dismissal itself. Basically, anything that has to do with discovery or may impact discovery should be handled on or before, or as soon as possible after July 26th. So, when does this conference happen? Can it be pushed back? What's the timing here? This is the big question. When exactly is all of this going to happen? The problem is that there's no explicitly stated date other than the deadline, which is the 26th, but there's still a window before and after when all of this stuff can be argued. Because of how the courts work and how the rules are stated above, both parties must be present on the 26th to hold the official conference. However, this doesn't mean everything has to be decided upon that day. Just talk to me. This would be literally impossible to decide everything that day, just because of how the courts work and they only have so many hours. This doesn't mean that they all have to be decided today. 26 is just the day everything revolves around, which is why next on an Iron Mason, we're going to be putting motion and arguments forward well before the 26th, as I stated before. This doesn't mean we'll have everything wrapped up and presented to us with a bow on by the end of the 26th. It just means that we should get a ton of information about the direction of the case on that day. However, it might come today or the day after. It might come tomorrow. We can't really tell exactly when this stuff is going to happen. Only around what day and what should be decided upon. Technically, the judge has up to 14 days to decide whether or not to delay some of these issues until what's called the final conference, and that's the day before the trial. This includes the dismissal, preliminary injunctions. A lot of this stuff can be moved pretty far back. Leaving those things until trial is extremely unlikely, considering the nature of this trial and how financially damaging that would be to everybody involved. It is still possible, and we won't really know what happened for certain until it's posted on Pacer. So, in short, we should have a ton of information by the end of 26, like local time for Seattle, or the day after, because usually reporting is done anywhere from same day to up to 48 hours afterwards. It depends on when it's all filed. But we can't be certain or expect anything until it actually shows up. All we really know is that the conference itself cannot be delayed unless there is some kind of government or court emergency, which is extremely rare. So on that day, all three parties will be showing up unless, like, the court catches on fire or the government shuts down. But what happens next? Shows up. All we really know is that the conference itself cannot be delayed unless there is some kind of government or court emergency, which is extremely rare. So on that day, all three parties will be showing up unless like the court catches on fire or the government shuts down. But what happens next? This section is really short because there's not much we can do except for wait and find out until the 26th, right? So as of shooting this video, that's tomorrow. So we wait, we bite our nails, and pray to whatever God governs the courts of the Western District of Washington. I'm looking at you, Flying Spaghetti Monster. Don't do me wrong. You got to help us out here. After that, there's two other important dates on the U.S. docket. August 9th, the initial disclosures deadline. See Section E in the linked Cornell article. I'm going to have that linked in the description below, as well as having it linked in this script. August 23rd is the joint status report deadline. I'm not going to really go into what that is. I'm going to save that for another video, but I do have a link to like a summary of what that is, and I'll have that link in the description as well. Now, for those of you who didn't want to sit through the video, what's the TLDR? To be brief, the 26th is a super important date for the trial. A lot of important things are going to be discussed then. The most important thing to note is that it's the first real opportunity for both parties to come to a settlement agreement. Other than that, they're going to discuss preliminary injunctions and dismissal. However, that doesn't mean that we will get the decision on these things, just that they're most likely, this is the most likely chance for those decisions, and that they're all going to be discussed in length on this day. So we won't necessarily get a decision on anything tomorrow. On the 26th, we likely will, but it's not certain, right? So the 26th is the most likely day for all of this stuff to go down, but it's not, promised. So as the judge is going to be there and going to make a lot of decisions there, that's just kind of how it's going to play out. But that's what the entire purpose of this meeting is. But things can always be pushed back if one party remains argumentative and the judge doesn't feel confident in her decision. So things can also be pushed back just in general by about 14 days before the judge either needs to make a decision or decide to push things back until the final conference, which is the day before the trial. While this is unlikely, things like that rarely get pushed back, especially up until right before the trial. It can happen. What we need to be prepared for is like a small delay, and if everything goes to shit, a delay until the final conference. But just please don't get crazy. Don't burn anything down. If we don't get any word back on the 26th, just keep a cool head. Remember that this is just kind of how courts work. If we do hear something great, it is highly likely that we'll start seeing exactly what's going to happen with the rest of this court case tomorrow on the 26th, but it's not 100% certain. So don't go crazy. I hope this clears a lot of stuff up. Here's a quick updated timeline for the situation with the US case and the Korean case. So July 21st was the deadline for the motion to stay discovery until dismissal, and that's obviously passed. We don't really know the resolution of that. I'm assuming it's been pushed back until the early case conference. So we should probably know. That's one thing we most likely will know about by the day's end of the 26th, if not within the 48 hours following. July 26th is the early case conference, pretrial hearings, and the Rule 26 conference. August 9th is the initial disclosure deadline. August 23rd is the joint status report deadline. In Korea, the 21st was the report on the investigative court. We haven't really heard much about that. There's been a few articles that have come out that have discussed it. I'm going to go over those in another video. August 21st to about September 21st is the rough estimate for the preliminary injunction hearing in Korea. Most likely, according to multiple sources now, it's probably going to happen sometime between the mids and the end of March. But yeah, that's about it. As always, you guys are all champions. I love you guys. This community is amazing. I want to thank you all for your support. Everybody joining the Discord, everybody who's giving supers, and everybody who's subscribing. You guys are incredible. I'm almost at 1,300 subs. My goal was to reach 1,000 by the end of this basically 1,000 by the end of this month. I am blown away, and I'm going to do something crazy for hitting 1,000. So keep on the lookout for that. I hope you all are enjoying what I'm trying to make, or what I'm trying to do here with these more concise, streamlined content. I'm doing my best to shorten things down without cutting too much information. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. If you want to access more content, be sure to join the guild by following the YouTube membership and the Patreon link below. You'll get your name in the intro scroll, and there's other ways that you can help out. I'm developing a game, and a lot of the money that from my YouTube is actually going to go directly into development. It's also going into upgrading my stream too, as seen by the new mic, the better camera setup, the better lighting. There's other stuff on the way. I'm going to get another monitor because the TV is kind of not working out as great as I want to. But yeah, you guys are all amazing. Please hit that bell icon, like and subscribe. Love you all. Have an awesome rest of your day. Peace.
Guys, how is Terrence's sound quality tonight? Is it a little bit better?
Is it a little bit better?
Is it a little bit better tonight than the other interview? Okay. Yeah, they said it's better. Perfect. Quiet production.
Let's see if I can do something.
No, I got it. It's all set.
Okay.
Perfect. How's he sounding now, guys? Test.
Yeah.
I know he sounds like he's underwater or an astronaut. I talked to him before the interview, guys. We're gonna start a Kickstarter for a new headset for Terrence, so that way, going forward. So before, number one, thank you so much. I know you guys are so busy, Terrence. Thank you so much for taking out of your day to come here and do this. It's awesome to be able to talk to you guys.
Pleasure.
So thank you so much for that. But I was personally a little confused on something. So I'm sure people in the chat are pretty well. So you're doing a staggered release based on the time zones, but we can. If I'm in the East, I can still load into the West Coast server initially, like that. Those are when the regions are coming up, or is that when we can access the actual game?
Okay, so it's not a staggered release. So I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So if the time, like the launch time that we announce for each of the regions, if they don't line up, then that's just.
Okay, it's just time zones. That's all it is. Okay, it's just okay.
It's all just time zones. Yeah. But
okay. I heard from some people it was staggered. I just wanted to clarify. I saw some people ask it. I just want to double check. So I know how time zones work.
Yeah. But I did notice that in our Discord in the community that there was some confusion, and I think even with the previous interview with OnePeg was that. So I was explaining like this time the technical. I guess the process that we're launching the playtest is not through the previous the Steam playtest feature, and we're doing it through their demo system.
Okay.
And so we're trying to align everything with their Steam Next Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And so Valve has a set opening time that they recommend, or their opening time for the Next Fest, which is 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, perfect.
But also in their guidance, they say, but everything has to be done through the demos, and just to make sure your demos are running properly, you kind of hint that you guys should release it a little early, right? And so we took that to mean, hey, but we're online. So there's a lot more areas where things could go wrong, right? So, we took that aside. Hey, let's launch not just a little bit earlier, but several hours or 6 hours earlier. So that's the thing, is that we're gonna release the demo. And I think there was a little bit of confusion when I was explaining this with OnePeg, is that what I meant by releasing the demo is that the playtest starts.
Gotcha. Okay.
The instant we release the demo. So I think it's 6 hours ahead of the Valve Steam Next Fest open time. Ours is 6 hours prior to that open, just to make sure we get all the little
kinks worked out. Gotcha. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, we're gonna open it earlier, but once that demo is, you could download it on Steam you should be able to log into the playtest servers.
Okay, sounds perfect. So hopefully that cleared it up for people. The other thing is that, just to give you guys a heads up, I sent these questions over to Terrence and the crew so they could at least see what type of stuff I was going to ask. There's no guarantee we're going to get through all the questions or anything like that, but my questions were more not just for this playtest, but further down the line of, you know, the plans for the game. And I know that's one of the other devs, SDF's main thing.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you know, hopefully he gave you some ideas and stuff. So something that, since I'm very competitive and I love playing the game competitively and high roll and all that stuff, one of my main I guess questions is, down the line, do you see you guys doing any official tournaments for the game, or if you do, in what capacity? Am I going to be able to host my own tournaments, do you hope, or, you know, because the community creating content for you guys is what the game's all about. So I think the more tools you give us, the better we can make it pop off.
So exactly. So just a bit of background is, first of all, for this interview, SDF was originally supposed to be here, but then right now we're preparing the final, like, internal play test just to make sure, you know, there's no huge glaring issues, and so that's the reason that he can't join us right now. But he gave me, like, hey, these are the important points. So it was a blessing that he gave us, like, the outline that we could kind of go over in our head. So in regards to the tournament, so background about the tournament issue or feature is that originally for Dark and Darker, it was never designed as like a competitive esports type of game at all.
Exactly.
But we do enjoy playing those games and watching those games, and the one thing that we kind of, you know, the feedback we've gotten from the community is that, there's a lot of desire from the community to have these kind of features, to do, you know, to have like community created content, especially in, like, you know, supporting tournaments and stuff. And so we're huge fans of that kind of content. Like, I'm not lying. During the playtest, when all the Twitch channels and the YouTube, it's basically, it's so hard for me to get people to work because everyone's just watching streams.
All right.
I mean,
Greetings, gentlemen. Let's get this spread.
And I think, you know, especially as a streamer, you know, to give people a background, when my chat was like, you should check out Dark and Darker, and I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And then some people played it, and when we went to go stream it, and I was like, this game's incredibly fun, and I had no idea where this was coming from. And then you guys ended up being in the chat watching us play it, and I'm sure you guys were like, this is awesome. People actually like our game, you know, like people actually enjoy it. So you guys kind of got some proof in the pudding about what you've been working on, you know. So I think because the game's obviously not about streaming, but the fact that it's clippable and it's fun to watch and people want to take it competitive, I know you guys are gonna do right by what everyone wants, because you enjoy watching as much as everyone else. So
yeah, so it's that kind of we see that it does have some kind of resonation within the streaming community, and so we, you know, because we are fans, we want to support that, and so and you know, at the beginning we had no ideas. So going really far back, we were like, hey, well, you know, even though it's not a super competitive game, there's that PvP element, and people want to, you know, test things out and try things out, and make like a training ground, and then that kind of let's make an arena. So I think even, you know, like first playtest, after playtest 1, and after the QA number 1 playtest, we were seriously thinking about, let's do the arena and stuff. And I mean, it's on the back burner, and now we have bigger ideas, and we thought of, these are the side effects that could come out because of that. So we have to do a lot more investigation, but like, we get a lot of that kind of feedback from the community, and that kind of gets our creative juices running. So this playtest, the most recent playtest, we got so many requests for doing tournaments, right? And we're really looking into, okay, is this a possibility? So on the surface level, it seems like it will be very easy to implement, but just the way when we started doing like the preliminary investigation, we realized there's things that are unique to our our structure, I guess, like the way, like the biggest thing is, what do you do about items that are, the loot that you get, or the loot you take in and stuff like that. And,
how can it be truly competitive when you have different people coming in with Diablo like loot rolls and stuff like that? And you're always going to have that element of RNG and randomness in every match. But the nice thing about your guys' game that happened multiple times to me is people would give me a bunch of loot, or I would have a bunch of good gear, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm not going to die at all. And then I would go into a room, be cocky, and I would get boxed in by a bunch of mobs and die. And I'm like, that was really embarrassing. But like the game does a good job of filtering out the ego and cleaning out some loot from people, even though you don't expect it to happen. But I think even if the game wasn't originally intended to be super competitive, degen gamers like myself are always gonna make something competitive when probably it doesn't always need to be. But I think that's what you guys have really hit so well, is not only can people who are very competitive enjoy the game, but people who just want to log in and hang out with their friends, or get a few rounds in on the weekend, they can have just about the same amount of fun as anyone else. So that kind of goes to my next question. We have a new solo dungeon for everyone who doesn't know. It's a completely redesigned dungeon where only solos can queue into, and it has its own unique troll boss. So I kind of wanted to piggyback on that a little bit. Is that dungeon going to have its own high roller queue as well, with a high roller leaderboard for solos only?
Yeah. No, so this is the easy answer. Is no, there's no high rollers. There's nothing on the leaderboard, because it would give the wrong. So the thing is, we've been saying from the beginning, this is an experimental thing. The thing on the leaderboard, it just gives it that much more. It gets toxic. And it's like, and for us, we do want to look at it as an experimental thing, and so to keep it at that tier, that's why we said, it's not to that point. We don't have enough confidence to say this is like a feature that we're gonna. But I think this also I want to give this warning also about the leaderboard itself is experimental. It's like we put it in seriously last minute in the very first playtest, because we were like, but we wanted to give at least that very first playtest was supposed to be like 3-4 days, right? And it's like we wanted to give our testers, our players, a short-term motivation. But it kind of worked out better than we expected. But I just want to, this is
just to clarify that the leader, everything could be different by the time we actually get to early access. Which I think that's important.
Very good chance that leaderboards might not actually be there once we go to launch.
So I mean, so that actually my next question then: do you think the leaderboards have been good for the game or bad for the game?
I don't know.
There's positives and negatives, right? Like
positives and negatives. Definitely.
You give a carrot for people to chase. People can start a blooming Twitch career now by putting TTV in their name and getting on the leaderboard, and people can say they're the world's first and stuff. So I think it's good for that competitive nature. But what we also saw, and I think the first playtest that I was a part of, with the leaderboard, is that people would just get in really good gear and then take 3 guys and just run through lobbies over and over again just to keep their name up there. So that's why when you guys added the high roller to kind of separate that, I was like, okay, I think it felt much healthier for me, at least last play test, because if I wanted to play a challenge, I would go solo into high roller with a buddy. But then if I needed to recoup losses, then I would go into normals and pick it up from there. So I think the high roller was a nice a nice like middle ground. So I personally like the leaderboards just because I like to be able to stack myself up to other people, like who has less of a life, right? Like who's, you know, it's always fun to see who's the biggest degen. So but yeah,
so I'm totally on the same page. Yeah, but on the other side of it, it's like there are concerns. It's like you know, and, okay, the thing was it's not that we didn't look at any documents about it, but we didn't consider all the different side effects that come out from that.
Right.
And so so even if the leaderboard, let's say we do choose to go with it in the future, in the actual release, is that there's definitely other things that we would probably need to tweak if, you know.
For sure.
And then there's also things that, like, I'm genuinely worried about the health of our players sometimes.
I said the same thing. I said the same thing because I was looking at the leaderboard and I would like go to bed and I'm like, all right, I'm like top 10 right now. I'm like, I'll just get some sleep. I'll wake up. We'll catch up. We'll catch up, you know. And then I wake up and they're like, they've got 300 kills. I'm like, what did they do last night? You know?
And so I don't know. That's exactly what we want to be, the behavior that we want to be encouraging. So I think, you know, there's other things that we have to take into consideration. So yeah, but again, please understand right now, you know, so internally we don't even think of ourselves as beta. You know, we're still in alpha, and that just means that there's a lot of prototype stuff that's inside the game, right?
Yeah.
When we go to early access, that's also wait, my friend's saying leave the chat. There's like this delay. Sorry, because I can't. But yeah, early access that's to us internally what we think of as like in traditional development of data, you know.
Right.
So
another question I'm seeing brought up, guys. They already said they're going to add VoIP. That's going to be in this playtest, by the way. Apparently, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't think you guys were going to get VoIP in this playtest. So I was thinking about the complications of it. You said that we'd be able to VoIP from stealth. That sounds very exciting. Yes. But then my next question is, because the dungeon is layered, right? Like, you know, sometimes you're gonna have people walking underneath you through brick and stuff like that. Did you test the audio where, like, you know, can people talk through walls to each other and stuff, or is it muffled?
It's muffled. So it's using our sound integration. We're using a third party. It's called WWise.
Okay.
And we're using a plugin that integrates with that. So it's gonna be yeah, it feels like people are, when they're talking, they're actually in that world. So if they're in like a dungeon area, you know, a large area, it has the echo, like when they talk, they'll also have the echo effect.
That's going to be awesome.
But please understand, like, we implemented this in 2.5 weeks.
We got it. It's your first pass. There's probably going to be bugs with it. Also, what a lot of people what a lot of people don't know is when you put VoIP on a server, it strains it a lot more, and that's like, so yeah, we're probably going to get some issues with it.
So you've already hit on one of them, is like the verticality of it is not that great still. So some of the stuff, like you'll hear people and you're looking around, you're like, but they're right below you. Right?
Okay.
And so those are things that we have to work out. So yeah, you could basically look at it. This is like version 0.1. This is and this is actually our first time implementing any type of you know, in-game VoIP technology. So yeah, please be understanding that this is not the final implementation. So there's going to be a lot of features that are going to be lacking, and we just kind of focused on, okay, can we put it in and kind of start getting an idea of how this would add to the game, and then and this is also going to be a good test for us to see, what are the dangers. So I'm sure, like, there are not a lot of, it's going to be chaos. That's our thinking here, is like, in terms of moderation and stuff, we don't have, so our personal experience of VoIPing is kind of limited also, and so that's why we're kind of, this is truly, we're going to throw it out there and see how people use it, and then that's going to give us the data to say, oh my god, this is, we got to stop this. Oh, this one's better than expected. Oh, these are the little bugs, and
Just remember that whenever you give us gamers any type of freedom, we're gonna make you regret it on some level. So that's just kind of how it is. There's always gonna be some bad apples. I'm sure I'm gonna be running down a dungeon and then 3 guys are gonna run at me blaring Tupac or something. Who knows how it's gonna be. I guess my main concern is that it's going to create a lot of funny moments for content creators. We obviously love that, but it's just how much garbage are people going to have to deal with to get to the good stuff, right? So obviously people in chat are wondering if there's a way to mute it. I already know there's a way to mute it. You guys wouldn't add VoIP without a way to mute it. So
that was the very base minimum that we knew that we had to have, is like instant hotkey that you could so it's and you can custom bind it. I think it's the comma key right now. That's because we had no idea. We're like, where do we put it? Yeah, we don't know. Okay, well, no one uses comma keys for anything. So that was our decision. Who knows? So these are things that we could do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of gamers nowadays, when we get gamers, right, we don't really get playtests. That's not very common. If you have a playtest, it's under NDA. People can't really talk about it, and then then we get an early access, and then we're in full judgment mode on the game. We're pretty much nowadays, at least for me, I kind of treat early access as a form of release because it's how developers use it. So I don't think a lot of people are used to dealing with playtests, and the way you guys are doing it is truly like a playtest. Like, hey, we're gonna throw a bunch of shit at the wall, see what sticks here. If it doesn't, we'll go back and redo it. I don't think people are used to when dealing with different playtests. So I actually prefer what you guys are doing. I hope more games follow suit, because you have to. Not everyone is going to be as blessed as you guys are to get this many people into their game early on, giving you feedback and stuff. I hope to see more games kind of treat head of early access a bit more seriously, instead of just throwing us early access garbage and then we're just like, oh, I'm sick of this. This isn't done. All that type of stuff. So I appreciate you guys trying things, even though I didn't agree with a couple. The solo queue, this test, I was like, I would have wished they would have done B1. I asked you about that and you answered for me, so hopefully you can answer for other people. I'm sure they're curious. Was there a reason you went with solo queue map this time instead of fleshing out B1, which is the first level for anyone in chat?
Yeah. So B1 is very, very high priority for us, right? And so the reason we went with this solo queue dungeon, so it's a totally, completely separate dungeon just for solos, right? Is that, so this was something that I think back in September, the September, or the September. I believe I can't keep Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, we're already here, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is going to be the 4th alpha playtest. I think it's the 5th public one. We had an actual friends and family one, so it's actually the 6th playtest on Steam that's coming up. But so basically, the one that we did in September, the one we around 10,000 concurrent users, right? What is that? Yeah. And we were like, oh my God. And so, and that's one of the rumbling. So, okay, there needs to be a solo queue and stuff. And at that time, we were like, oh, very dismissive.
Yes.
Oh, that's not, But then internally, that was a good, I guess, like inception point for us. Is like, oh, but so.
Yeah,
what's the motivation behind people talking about that, and is that really what's the best for the game? And so that planted that little seed in us back then, but we were like, our game's not about solo queue, it's about doing the party dungeon experience. But then having more deeper conversations with like SDF and the design team, and it was more like, well, okay, no, it's not just about purely party dungeon diving, it's just about adventuring in general. That's what we wanted to, and that's what SDF was like. Hey, my intention was never just for parties. It's like he wanted to make some kind of viable experience for solo players to have, Like, but we didn't know all the details back then. So, and we didn't even know our capabilities back then. Like, what are, you know, we thought we really thought it's gonna be like 5,000 people, you know, right? And so when your player pools at that you know size, is we have one dungeon, and even scoring regions is going to be very it becomes a liability.
Right.
And so, you know, we're in this very, very fortunate situation now where we do have a little bit more options to explore, especially with like player pools. I think, like, just to put people at ease, my personal experience and my personal thoughts is like, having 3 queues, matchmaking queues, that's you know.
Well,
like if we go anything beyond even if we have like, you know,
I don't know. I don't even get time when I load into the game turns. Like I sit there, my character's still being pixelated, rendered in, and it's like, you're in. I'm like, all right, they could probably spare some time on the queues. Like I'm always sprinting down to the training dummies. I'm like, what's my damage? And it starts before I get there, like all the time. So I think whatever you guys did with the queues, I think is phenomenal. Like it's just instant. Like I've never had my dopamine receptors hit so much so quickly. So yeah,
we want to keep that, and that's something we need to and so because of that is like, that's, you know, that's one of our big advantages, and we don't want to lose that. And so everything is about like so it goes back to the actual question of B1 is like you know, nothing is free, right?
Yes.
So everything you have to think about the cost considerations and how to prioritize things. And so the reason we went with doing the solo dungeon is because, okay, so there's 2 big considerations, is because of the short time element in developing. So the first is the time element, is that we only have 3.5 weeks of development time, and actually like, so we took the year off and came back, started developing on, like, not even developing, like, what can we start doing? Oh, okay, sorry, it's lunch. So the one thing we gotta invest in is getting another meeting room.
I was gonna say another meeting room and another headset. I think might be a good investment.
But this is such an important you know, topic that I want to explain to everyone, is that so we only had a month, and it was less than that, and so the thing was, and this includes actually the scheduling of what we want to do for this playtest, right? So and so the original plan was, okay, let's just do D1. Like that's going to be our main goal for the playtest. But then that was done all the way back in November, December, you know, the end of November, December, before we extended the playtest. We thought like we would at least have another week or so to develop at the end of the year, and you saw how that went. Yeah. So when we came back and then we sat down and we looked at the reality of it, it was like, oh my God, wait, next fest, you know. And the thing is, until you start actually scheduling things down and, you know, doing project management, it's like, for us, it was like February. It's like this kind of ambiguous, like, you know, abstract concept. Oh yeah, that's 2 months away. But the actual date was like February 6th. And then we have to actually think about like, QA time. And then when we started putting it down, we're like, oh man, we don't really actually have that much true development time. And so now the second thing is, so we could have just said, we're going to do B1 no matter what, right? But the thing is that because we are now, we're at a point where, like, our original intention was like, we're just going to fly under the radar until we get to early access, but that's all blown up now, right? So there's all these other things that we have to always take into consideration. There's expectations, right? And so I know, like, in a fantasy world, we can just go into our own isolation and do whatever we want, But the thing is now we're in this world where
not anymore, dude.
yeah, not anymore. Exactly. And we're ambitious too. Is that we want to at least our whole thing is like, hopefully our words have weight, but at the same time, people are cynical because there's so many promises that so tell people, hey, we're working on B1, just but at the same time, it's like, but until we could show something, it's hard to say. So that's why I'm saying right now, being very open. It's like, we're B1's at the top of our mind, but it was a strategic decision. It's that, okay, we only have this much limited time to develop. What can we actually show people that can have the impact that we can to us, show us, some data that we're actually curious about. And if it's bad, it's great that, if we find out that this Solo Queue dungeon was like the worst idea we had ever. It's awesome to do it right now, rather than like in early access or launch, and it's way more resources then. And so it was like, okay, this is something, if we work really hard, they work really hard to get this done in time. Because we do have limited resources, so it is. But the community is right. It is a big decision, and it is a big diversion of our resources to work on something like this. But to us, it's something that was so important that you don't want to have that thing hanging on the back of your mind all the time and say, oh, what if? It's just better to do it and then get it out of the way, right? And then, or if it works out really well, okay, this is something that actually added value to the game and the product. And so it was a strategic decision, and it's basically coming from that because we wanted to show rather than talk, right? And if we did B1, we would just be talking more and then just showing visual.
It wouldn't have been finished. I definitely understand that part.
It like we just crunched the number and it was like, B1 is. I mean, it's not. It just didn't fit in that slot. We just needed a little bit more, right? But then we're like, hey, this is another thing that's not as high a priority, but it's something we're passionate about. And that puzzle piece kind of just slotted in there perfectly. And so let's do that as a strategic decision. So that's what I wanted to make very clear.
Look, even though I'm against solo queue, I agree with the decision. And for people that don't know, B1, so right now we started B2 and we go to B3. B1 is the intended first level of the dungeon, which, and correct me if I say anything wrong here, is going to be a bigger area, more supposed to be more open, with more players. I think 32 was what was estimated. And then we're going to like find the dungeon and then go down to B2. So the reason,
that's that concept.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you got it. That's perfect.
So the reason B1 is so important is because it's the first part of the game. So I had a lot of people come into chat and be like, I want a solo queue, I want a solo queue, I want a solo queue. And while I understand that, I'm like, until we have the full piece of the pie, I don't think we can say we need a solo queue yet, So that's why for me, I was like, oh, they should have done B1. But if you only have 3 weeks to make a giant 32 player, there's so many things that go into that I think it's worth testing whether the solo dungeon works. And then regarding the solo dungeon, how is the loot is it shared? So is it like, if I go into the solo dungeon, farm in there, I can then, that stash is shared with the 3-man dungeons and stuff like that, so I can bring it one to the other, vice versa?
Yeah. So we don't have that. Again, we don't have the capacity to do that. I mean, we do, but not in that short time. So we just did it as direct as possible, and then we've tuned it in a way that you could do it solo, but I think in terms of efficiency, and it's a different experience. So that's what I could tell you. It's not the same,
I'm interested in what the solo dungeon is going to be. Like, is it going to be so? Is it going to start with 16 people, or is it
It's much more. So again, these are all the little details that make like a solo dungeon can encompass anything from like a solo team to like like just battlegrounds, right? Or battle royale, right?
Yep.
It's like and we're in this much smaller, like intimate kind of dungeon. I mean, you'll see. So like one detail I'll give is like the starting, and this could change though, is because the balance, like so. We tell, the team, hey, when we're testing, play like players. Like, really good friends and stuff. So, there's teaming that goes on. So, our team is like, okay, well, we can talk to each other and make mistakes, then I think we're on the right track. We're not just there. So there's tuning and stuff we have to still do, but it's a different experience. It's kind of a smaller, more intimate experience. And then so one of the things we had a chance to do a lot more testing at the last 2-3 days in this is that I think the robot is going to be the highest tier. It's still pretty much that, but it's just the controller. One comes out super dumb. Where we're like, man, if you only give ethics off control, the risk reward, like in our mind, that ratio, it doesn't fit, right? And it's because it's small too, and when you're fighting, like you get third parties and stuff, and it's like So first time world exclusives right now is that there's a 1% chance that legendaries can drop.
Okay. So they can drop legendaries. It's just a really small chance.
Yeah, and a really small chance, just because we have to. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Is that we're gonna adjust. And again, this is similar to Voyages. This is like our version 0.1 on trying to do this. We just had a bunch of ideas that kind of clobbered together, and it worked better than we thought. But there's a lot of balancing and little dials that we haven't tuned in properly. And so, lots of things. Like when I was talking one paper, we were like, oh yeah, in our mind, it has to fit this thing.
Yeah.
But then actually playing it, and it's like, oh, we tuned it and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, but this will be more fun, and that's why things are changing on the fly. Okay, and this will probably happen, like, our goal always with the playtest is we're not going to have hot fixes. We've never once been able to keep our promise internally on that. So that's why, hey, don't worry if we mess it up this time. We'll do the Tuesday's hot fix. We'll get in there, and if we mess it up, we're going to put it in on the Tuesday's hot fix. So. I'm not trying to say that lightly. It's just that we feel we have room to tune things, right? And then we're at a place now we're constantly figuring it out and dialing it in. And we're at a place that we feel like, at least for the foundation of what we, the concept for what we wanted to do with the solo dungeon. And it's around like 60% there. And then during this playtest, we'll get it up, like another 10-15%. We'll see. And then if it starts going down, we don't know. Then, like I said, we could just yank it. And this is why it's not part of the high ruler, the leaderboards and stuff.
Gotcha. I mean, I think that's good though.
This is where it is.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, no, I was, my brain when you say solo queue with legendaries, I think of my first reaction is, okay, how can this be abused, right? That's my first thought. Okay, so I'm gonna go with my 3-man. We're gonna get really good gear. I'm gonna go into the solo queue in my full, triple legendaries, and just make sure no one has a good time, and I'm just gonna, solo farm the troll. But whether you can solo farm the troll or not, I don't know, because the way you guys did the bosses. You tweaked them last test, and we went down there, and I was in my best gear, and I got like one shot multiple times. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna do their PD anymore. I think it's a little too difficult. I think I'm just gonna kill people. So yeah.
That's exactly how I feel with the troll right now.
Yeah.
So my strategy the last couple of days is I go down there, I hide, and wait for someone else to basically try to take him down.
Yeah.
And then when they're looting, you know, take him out. So I think there is its own kind of, it's a unique experience. So yeah, before you
do it.
Try it.
No. I'm definitely gonna try it. I have to try it. Like, there's no way you guys are gonna make something and I'm not gonna at least. I think it's important for, even if like I don't completely agree with a solo queue, solo dungeon, whatever. If I want to have a proper opinion about it, I need to do it. You know, there's no way I can just sit here from from the back and be like, yeah, that's a crap idea. But the truth is, no one really knows it's a bad idea until we put it in the game and we try it and we see what the the implications are. So. I think it's cool, and then also just to see what you guys envision for like a new type of dungeon, because to me, B2, B3, they change drastically between the playtest, but after you get familiar with the puzzle pieces, I kind of know what one of your rooms is. You know what I mean? So, so
exactly.
I'm curious to see in the solo dungeon if you use some of the same puzzle pieces or. I'm excited to see what you guys have cooked up in 3 weeks, by the way, which is just crazy. Like, I've been with a lot of video games and a lot of dev time, and you guys do crazy stuff in a short amount of time. So just don't burn yourself out. That's all I'm saying. We love the game.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, I think everyone's ready to play it, but I think we're here at the pace you want to take it, and I'm sure everyone in chat would gladly send you some money right now just to play it as it is in whatever state it's going to be. So.
So that's our job, is like, we appreciate all that the community loves, but I think our expectation on ourselves is that we're not there yet. So we so we want to make it worth your money when you guys, when we do actually open up to taking money. Is that, but we still have a bit, stuff that we want to put in and make sure we have at least the right foundation, and so and the right messaging, and so I think that's the thing, is like the long-term goal for this is right now we're very content lean, and because we've been focusing on getting the systems in, and we're still probably maybe like 60% of the way up. The core systems, the essential systems that we still need to work on. But our goal is, once we get to a place where we're pretty comfortable, maybe like to the 80%, and then we can start expanding out and looking at more actual content-based stuff. And then the best stuff are the stuff that kind of I think, so that is what that is. Tested out, and hey, it worked out better than expected. Maybe not, we don't know, we'll see, but if it does, and then it does actually add new content, expand the content. And then that gives us a little bit more breathing room and freedom to see, okay, these are stuff that we could eventually start expanding on in the future also.
Gotcha. You said something in the interview with One Pen that kind of stuck out to me, because I could tell we were on the same wavelength, because I said it before you said it, and I was like, okay, he gets it. Because some people were asking, can we buy stash tabs? Can we have more space? And I'm like, right now, they really don't want to give us more space, because if I had infinite storage, I wouldn't need to go trading. I wouldn't need to, be looking for new gear. I could just fill up, my stash, and there'd be no need to, not worry about it. So I know that you guys are working with the basically most out of the test, because when I was playing the last test, I was like, I love this game, I enjoy it, but I don't think there's much more than like a month here for like the normal gamer.
you're being very generous. Internally, we're like, oh man, yeah. And so that's a big fear, you know. It's like, oh, okay, we gotta get at least a month, content. And so,
yeah, and I, you know. Also, is like content creators, metagamers, all that stuff. We burn through stuff as quickly as possible. 18 hours a day, so it's difficult to keep up with that. Which that kind of goes into the final questions I have. You're talking about the game being 60% done, and I think to some people they feel it's finished as is, right? They're like, yeah, I love it as is. I don't need anything more. But often people don't know what they actually do. So down the line, closer to the game being complete, do you have anything you can give to myself in the chat regarding the game to be, post early access? Because right now we have the 3 quests for the NPCs, kind of like Tarkov. I assume we're gonna have a stash area, like a hideout area, something for us to maybe put our gold into as like a long-term thing. Is that potential, or do you have any other different things that are planned down the pipe?
Okay, so yeah, I gotta be very careful with my
I know. I'm sorry. It's just one word you're saying for early access. Right.
And so all the stuff you're talking about, these are stuff that we have plans long-term for the game.
Gotcha.
Right? This is stuff that we want to do as we build this game out. Like we have we expect this game, to run for minimum like 10 years, or if we 20. Well, so the thing is, when we talk to people, like we're trying to sell our vision, it's like, this is a 20-year game, but 20 years from now, we might be just like sticking things directly into our brain, and who knows now.
Yeah, I've been looking up Neuralink stuff. Who knows where we're going to be in 20 years.
Yeah. But hopefully, we could have Dark and Darker Neuralink version in the future too, right?
Just VR, swing my sword, please. Yeah, I can't wait.
But so I mean, we have like everything you talked about. We have plans for that. But,
okay.
So, but for early access, our main goal for early access is we want to get to that, like, okay, in terms of the foundational, functional, essential systems that we feel this gives the basic framework for what Dark and Darker is.
Mm-hmm.
We want that to be in place, like, I guess like the Pareto principle, like 80%, 20. Like we want to get to at least that 80% done, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, sorry, this has nothing to do with it.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, that's like the internal guideline we're looking at. Is like, so we want to get to a point where we have enough internal base systems in place, and then so our main goal in early access is of course expanding those systems, but then that rate is going to slow down once we go into early access. But it's not going to be feature complete for sure.
Right.
But then what early access is signaling to people is, okay, we at least we have the basics of Dark and Darker in terms of the systems, and now we're going to start focusing on how to expand those systems with actual more content. So like,
gotcha.
So we should have, when we go into early access, like a somewhat idea of what kind of dungeon structure, how many dungeons, or what kind of, like how do people get into dungeons? How do people matchmaking stuff? And then once we go into early access, then we'll start actually work on making those dungeons,
Mm-hmm.
So like right now we only have, that's why I said B1 is kind of like a necessity, is because if we don't have B1 in place, then how do we start actually building?
Hello, friends.
Right. Well, the whole picture would be incomplete without B1, and then that's so for you guys to go to early access. I think you want the 3 levels of the dungeon pretty solidified, and then whether the solo dungeon or not, whether that's going to be a part of it. And I think you just want the general game flow to work, because the way it's supposed to be is 15-esque minutes in each zone, so it's going to be like 45 minutes for someone to do top of the dungeon to the bottom, and like that playthrough that's a bigger commitment, I think, than some people are used to doing to the game right now, where you load in, you might die instantly to a skeleton, or maybe you get through the run and you just extract in 15 minutes. So I think it's important for you guys to get that done for early access, just so we can see like how people feel about going through 3 levels.
There's a lot of
that's going to be totally different. And then
robot
also
ammo there.
doing the multiple levels. I had the idea of it kind of sucks when you go from one level of the dungeon to another, that there's not going to be a lot of people there.
A bunch of energy ammo there too.
Lobby, right? So you're kind of in an empty dungeon by yourself, and then you guys either came to the same conclusion or whatnot, but you're gonna have different games match up in between those lobbies, so that the second or subsequent levels are going to be more full, correct?
So that's something we are working on.
Okay.
So we actually considered really hard to put it into this playtest, but there's some what is it?
Well, that's a big system too. That's completely changing how all of your servers work and talk to each other. So I can imagine that would be nuts for the playtest.
So I think things like that is those are things that we're still experiment with during beta, early access. I think the easy answer for early access
energy ammo there.
Get at least a better idea of how the dungeon is going to be done. That's why we want to get V1 in for early access, we've been pushing very hard for that three level structured dungeon. But we'll see. Maybe
it gets scrapped completely, right? Like
okay. So this is another part, is that it's not that we didn't even start V1. We did do like a couple days of just like doing heavy internal discussion about how we can design V1, and then this is the reason we realized that hey, this is probably not something that can be completed in 3.5 weeks, is because when we started doing those internal discussions, it's like there's all these side elements that are kind of coming in, and then we're like, oh my god, we might be biting off more than we could chew, or these are very critical stuff that we didn't consider originally with the V1, and so this is why it's critical that we do get some kind of working version of V1, and then we'll see how the response is, and if we're testing a bunch of our assumptions and stuff, and so but until we get that, it's hard to say that this is dark and darker.
Yeah.
There's 2 teams.
Once we get the answer from here, then it's going to be a lot easier for us to say, okay, so now we know, like, okay, what our limitations are, and and then we can start working on doing actual a lot more dungeons, and so it goes to like our vision of what we want to do in the future for dungeons is like there's not always three level dungeons. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right, that's what I was thinking. You know, like down the line there could be a 3-month DLC, or I don't know how you're gonna do your monetization. That was another question I was gonna have, but there could be like we're introducing a whole new biome of dungeon type, and then people get a whole new take on the dungeon, because the game has like a certain feel to it right now. Like when I load into B2, I know what's going on. I've played like hundreds of hours at this point. I know how it feels. And you touched on something with one peg, like, when you go into B1, are you going to see the sky? Is it going to feel like you're finding the dungeon? Those are all like different things that go into the game. So I think down the line, the table's really open for you guys to do whatever you want with it. So I think it's very interesting and admirable that you guys are admitting you don't really have like a locked in solid idea of what you want the game to be. It's changing with the playtest as you get info and stuff, and I think that people should understand they're part of a playtest and don't have too many expectations other than the fact that you guys just know how to make a good game. That's the only expectation I have, is that every time I play, I'm just astonished and surprised with how polished every playtest is. I have to say this because we would go like a month between a playtest, and then you're like, okay, it's Halloween, here's like a bunch of pumpkins and all this like Halloween themed stuff, and I'm like, okay, I play games that are launched that don't even do that level of detail just to like the lobby. So I think you guys should be proud, and I think the community is completely behind you with whatever you guys end up doing, so I wouldn't stress on that too much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So one point that I did want, so it's true. Like, so we do have an idea of what we want to do, but what we've learned, so,
2 teams, once.
This is a basic thing that we are thinking even from the very beginning. Is that we have an idea of what we think we want to do, right? But we don't have all the details, and then we could be wrong too, right? So the best way to figure that out is to actually test it out. But the one thing that I think that kind of separates us, or the one thing that always we're very confident in, is that in terms of even if we don't know the details, at least in terms of the direction, we're confident that we're going in the right direction, and it's just because we know that like it all goes back to we want to capture that feeling of, oh, you're in this fantasy dungeon diving experience, and that's what we're always thinking about. So like doing that 3-level structure, that's just one way to execute it, but it doesn't need to be the right way, or it doesn't need to be the only way. Our main goal is that we want to have an excellent dungeon diving experience. And so, like, this is an easy example with dungeons, is that it doesn't always need to be that structure, right? Because when you're playing with friends, or you're doing pen and pencil, I bet you, like, most are not that kind of structure. It's just that what fit our needs at that point. But there's all sorts of different types of awesome fantasy dungeons, and so those are all inspirations for us that we could kind of overlap and figure out we're still heading in the right direction, figuring out those details of how to execute it properly.
Well, I appreciate that you guys try things. Like, I know, like, the crafting system you threw in kind of last time, just to like see, with the gathering, the Ruby stuff. And I'm sure that wasn't like a final system, just the way it was implemented. But I appreciate that you guys threw it in there. Like, okay, this is like a rough draft of what we were kind of envisioning for the system, and let the players figure out if they like the idea behind it and stuff like that. I think that's a smart way to do it. So a lot of people, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here. I see a lot of the same questions come up in chat, so we don't have to stick to all my questions. I'm totally fine with that. I know you guys have more classes planned, right? We know that people always want to know, that people are always curious, when am I going to get to play out my warlock fantasies, my bard, am I going to be a necromancer that summons skeletons? And so to me, I always think of like, okay, game balance, how crazy are they going to get, blah, blah, blah. Do you have like a certain, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, some type of lore that you're looking at for your classes, so people can have like, because this is what I personally know. I know we have like a bard and a druid and maybe a monk, or a sorcerer, stuff like that planned. Are you pulling those from a certain area, or just where games you grew up on and classes that you guys are used to?
Yeah, those games we grew up on, so I think, but again, it's just like we're not trying to, at least not at this point, is that we're not trying to do anything crazy, novel in terms of the setting and experience. I think one of our things that we're actively trying to do is actually piggyback on the familiar, right? And so, and that's been our strategy from the get-go, was like, we don't want to, we're not actively trying to create something brand new. That's not our job. Is that we want to create our own, we want to give our own spin on something that's traditional, right? And so I think even with the classes, that's why we want to do very traditional classes, at least for now. Maybe, we get more confident in the future and stuff. We're like, okay, hey, maybe we'll try something else. But that's way, way, way down the line.
Of course.
And we still have this huge pool of knowledge and resources that we barely begun to tap, right? So,
are you guys thinking you're going to have any classes before early access, or getting these classes, or do you guys want to put pieces of the pie together first before you start adding more variables?
Again, it's a bigger. I think we'll bite off more than we can chew if we're doing new classes right now. So hopefully, as a challenge internally, is that, hey, let's try to get that bard out for the game. That's again, I think we're doing hard.
Good job, man.
I'm gonna be honest. I Void, Terrence, I just need you to think about something, okay? With Void, you're gonna have people that can actually singing in Void, beating people over the head with like an instrument. Like, there's a lot of potential there. So I'm not saying it needs to happen.
That is awesome. That's what I want to see.
But I think it would be really good if you got the Bard class.
Yeah. And so we're gonna work very, very hard on that. But again, it goes back to like, conceptually, we have a cool idea. But it all comes down to like, okay, can we actually do it in time? And so, but I think it's going to be a good challenge for us, and I'm semi-confident that we can get that done. But we'll see.
I think we have more confidence in you than you guys do at this point. I have to say it again. As like an MMO PvP gamer survival guy, like the industry has been really rough of late, just with the games that we get and the games that I'm personally interested. I'm mostly not interested in a lot of the games that come out nowadays, just because they don't really, as far as like a PvPer goes, we're just kind of left by the wayside. So I think you guys have managed to create a game that appeals to a lot of different types of gamers, a lot of different types of players. And at this point, like, I don't want you guys to let it get to your head, but you guys have done a great job with the game and just the fundamentals of it. Whether it could turn into something totally different down the line, right? Like, who knows? And games change, but just what you have, like, it definitely like harkens to like games I grew up on, games that aren't really made anymore, and it's like a risky game to me. Like this venture of your guys, this could have not worked out, and because you guys, a lot of people don't know this, you guys had a marketing budget, right? And then you saw how much people liked it, and you're like, okay, we don't need that. We can put that into other things in the game. So I think that's awesome that, you guys are nailing it so much that you could actually do that.
We have no marketing budget anymore.
Perfect.
And our marketing budget is called the server cost. That's what it is. It's way more than we ever thought it would be.
I bet. Okay, that's the next question for this playtest.
Either one of y'all got mics?
Got like 55k concurrent or something like that last playtest. What?
Yeah, hell yeah. Nice.
Okay, so even. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready for the floodgates this playtest? It's going to be even more than last time, right?
So in terms of the technical side of things with the server, I think there's going to be hiccups, and we keep on improving each time. But so if I'll be honest, like trying to prepare for that stuff actually causes more hiccups.
Yeah, I can see that.
The last time we're trying to put in extra protection for like DDoS attacks and stuff, and that actually made.
All right, if y'all find one of those engineered crates, those yellow ones, I can unlock them. So please tell me where they're at.
Had those kind of connection issues. It was like, okay. But it's a good thing we had that, and then we fixed it, and so but that's why in terms of confidence of having bigger player numbers on the technical side, it shouldn't be an issue.
I'm interested to see how the servers hold up with Void, because I know that's the new strain on the servers, so it'll be interesting. I mean, the last playtest, you are the only times I've seen you guys have any issues with like a patch or something. You had like a little bit of hiccups with the server stuff, and people spawning in on top of each other. But usually like that was like one of the only things I noticed. There was a couple regions were having issues, but for how many people were playing it, I think you guys did very, very well. Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire a couple random questions, and then you can just knock them out of the park. Are there any plans for crossplay down the line?
No.
No plans. Okay.
Easy.
All right, I like
plans.
that. All right, monetization. I've heard a couple things knocked around, like buy to play with either cosmetics or stash tabs. Have you guys locked that in on any way, or do you still not know at this point?
Yeah, we don't know. So I'll give you engaging. again, the business model we feel we're closest to now, and that is the one like Dead by Daylight and Hunt Showdown, where they have the base game that they sell, and then they do have like those DLC packs, right? So, like they have those new killers and stuff, and so, but there are like details there that we have to think about. So again, we have a general direction idea of how we kind of see the business model, but there's a lot of details there that we still have to work out.
Oh, for sure. There's a bunch of fine tunings, like, you know, because in the last playtest we were grinding out cosmetics in game, right? So, you know, there's we're kind of testing some of the moving pieces in a way we might not actually be getting them next time. So I think Dead by Daylight's model is great. I think that's a phenomenal model to go for. There's a few games in the industry that I think have good models that you can. People are always going to disagree on monetization one way or the other, but I think Dead by Daylight's model is very fair, so that's a good one to go to.
Yeah. So I think the other realization was that the maintenance costs were kind of underestimated.
Pretty sure this is the one we just cleared.
You know,
oh yeah.
the amount of the response that we got is just unbelievable. But again, I'm not complaining at all.
It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. But it just kind of brought us back to reality. It's like, oh, okay. So how do we make sure like the lights are running and that we're not
Of course. I mean, yeah, you can't just charge a box price and then you're just running these server costs and yeah, of course. So I think a lot of people when they're playing games they forget what goes into running a game, especially a live service game like this with crazy servers and stuff. There's a lot that goes into it, so I think that's a great model. Okay, hang on.
But there's multi-pronged approaches to that. So monetization is part of it, and then optimization. So there's other, but it was kind of eye-opening.
What? Okay, I'll shoot one more on that. Battle Pass, yes or no?
Personally, I'm not a big fan of Battle Pass.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy Battle Passes and stuff.
Oh yeah, we all do it. We all do it.
Yeah. But it's kind of like so there's two reasons.
This has already been looted, so
it's just like personally, I'm not a big fan. But I don't know. I can't say yes or no because then I can feel for the okay, we have to do Battle Pass this instant.
Put the Battle Pass in SDF quick. Yeah, exactly.
So the reason I'm not a fan is that kind of the whole promo aspect. It's like, if I don't right now, I'm missing out. And so we kind of want to limit that as much as possible. But again, it goes back to the realities of running the business now. And,
yes, totally.
But in terms of running the business too, it's like it's probably better not to do the Battle Pass just because then we have to change the way that we run our development because you just need so much extra content, and I don't know if actually that kind of having an abundance of all this kind of extra content actually adds to the value of semiconductor product. And for sure, right? Yeah. And so maybe the preliminary data right now is not actually a good fit for our product. I think I agree. That makes it easy. I can't make a hard promise, like.
No, I get it. No, don't make any promises because what'll happen is if you say anything with a definitive, point here, someone's gonna quote it, put it on Reddit, and be like, Terrence is a liar. Remember when he said that? So I think I think we get it. I also think that on Battle Passes, it just like I don't like when my progression is tied to like a monetary amount. And then, I see people with some like cosmetic, I'm like, oh, I want that. I need to swipe for it, and like, I always like that there's something I can do in game to get to the same spot. So I agree with you on the Battle Passes. Progression between wipes. So I heard a while ago that you're at least SDF said this in passing, you're looking at 3 months for like a wipe cycle. I know you're not logged into that.
3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months. I mean, I think that's see any type of progression lasting between those wipes for the vision of the game?
So this is again way down the line.
We
want like trophies and stuff, and so if you could again our biggest inspiration is coming from Ultimate Online. line. And
Ooh,
so
that's my favorite game, Terry. That's my favorite one. Okay, continue.
So I think that's why, you know, our game resonates with your audience, and but so yeah. Again, I might just be talking out of my ass right now, but
that's
because
okay.
this is something like 2-3 years down the line, you know, but our goal is to have like player housing, right? And then if you're inviting people over, you know, you want to show off all your deeds and your achievements and stuff, and those are the things that should probably carry over from wipes, right?
Yes.
So you have a cool trophy, you know, like.
Yeah, so
when someone comes in and they know instantly, okay, you have that kind of legacy, right?
Exactly. That's what I was envisioning. You know, like when I think of like because like before your game, I never really tried any extractors, and I'm mostly like an MMO player. You know, I need that permanence, that progression. And then I tried your guys' game, and I was like, this has enough progression for me. But I'm like, constantly my brain's like, let's make this more like an MMO, because that's just where my brain goes. So when you talk about inviting someone over to your hideout or something and showing off your trophies, like that's exactly what my brain went to, because you know, down the line, what I hope for Dark and Darker, you know, other games to follow suit, but you guys are definitely the best positioned, is, you know, you have this area that you're proud of, that you've got your achievements between the wipes on. You have like a training dummy area set up where, you know, you can like do damage testing. You can have people over to practice duels, or you could, you know, sit down at a table and play a card game, you know, like all that in between lobby stuff, because as I said, your guys' queue is so quick and efficient that there's really no downtime. So it's like, I would like a spot where I could have some downtime. I got to calm down every now and then. So I obviously that's way down the line, but I think that's great. Yeah. Again,
it just goes back. It just now everything comes back to the you know, the details and the execution and doing the reality of it is like, because we're on the same, we're like, oh, we're just gonna do everything like that, and then now we realize the cost of running, like, you know, having dedicated servers for all that. We're like, oh, okay,
exactly. My brain's like, yeah, it should be easy.
But it depends on, like, so there's multiple ways of doing everything, right? And it's like, and having if we have a large number of tests to support that one way, or if it has to be doing, you know, so again, there's just too many factors that we don't know about right now. But at least in terms of what we want to do, we're on the exact same page.
Okay, perfect. So now I kind of get a feel for this, so I know you're not giving any promises, but do you have any plans for a roadmap for the game so people can kind of know what to expect instead of me swindling them into coming to my stream? You know, like, it's great that you do this for the community. I think it's awesome, but a lot of people are fervent about having a roadmap, but then the problem is they hold you accountable to said roadmap, right? So I understand why you wouldn't if you don't want to.
If you guys have the magic way of building an actual solid roadmap, please let us know. But I think that's, you know, that's part of our strength, is that flexibility, right? So you know, we have a very, very long roadmap, right? So we have like these super big goals that we want to do. So like, one of the things for sure is that we want to go on consoles. So, but we don't know when. Right. We have you know, a general plan, but we don't know the dates. Yeah, I mean, we've made up dates, but they're basically imaginary dates. You know, who knows?
So you are, so just to clarify, you are planning to launch on consoles. You just don't want them mixed with PC players and crossplay, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, going back to crossplay, I said no, but it should have been probably no. You know. So the big reason why is something we've been testing before, is because of the Steam Deck. It's like, you know, it's like Steam Deck. And we think it's going to grow that market.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so but it's a great tool for us to start preparing ourselves to, you know, for a gamepad and stuff for the console. But at the same time, like, it's like, okay, but is that market size right now enough? Like, if they have to separate and crossplay, it's gonna be like 3 teams like that.
Right. So wait, we're
same dungeons at the same time.
Yeah.
Or, so that's why I can't say no. The reason I said no was like, yeah, the easy answer is.
I get you. I understand. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. So those are the things that pop up that kind of, throw a hitch into like our roadmap, the roadmap. But like in terms of big goals, yeah, we do have a roadmap in that. These are like the big things that we want to do. Our dream is we want to be, we want people on Xbox and PlayStation to be able to play our game. So if anyone has connections to Xbox or PlayStation, let them know.
I think the game would be great on console, but I could definitely see, the argument of I would want crossplay for myself so that I could, fight against more people, and I think it should help queue times, right? If queues are getting thinned out. But then the inverse of that is, people crying about aim assist on Rangers and stuff, or it's whenever you mix PC and console, it's oil and water. It's never gonna perfectly mesh. So I understand why you would not want to initially.
Yeah, just because each platform has different strengths and weaknesses, and then just like trying to kind of mesh everything, it's like, no one's satisfied then. It's just like, you take away from what makes this platform more engaging, or it's just, So again, we haven't actually done the console, implementation yet, so we don't know. So maybe we're like, hey, this is actually better than we thought, and then so things could change. But just our initial thoughts is, it's just too far apart, and let's just keep them in their own separate sandboxes.
That makes sense.
And then just to finish up on the roadmap is that, we have very big, broad roadmap. So we want to get on consoles eventually. We want to get on other platforms like VR. Like that's even farther down the line. But like SDF and I, we're just, we're very interested in that space itself. I know it's in a rough spot these days.
Yeah, when I look at VR, it's just as a sweaty PC gamer, I'm like, it's. When I look at it, I'm like, it's not there. But there are a lot of times when I'll watch someone do like a VR, doing like, really fast, like, coming there, right? So it's, So again, that's why I can't give you dates. Because there's so many other factors. But it's like that's something we're passionate about. It's like we want to do it anyways, just as a personal passion project kind of thing. But again, we have so much other stuff on the plate right now that this is way down the priority list. But in terms of like in our headspace and stuff, we're like, oh, that would be so awesome. Well, I think it's important that people understand that you guys came from really corporate gaming dev studios. You guys were pretty much cogs in a machine doing working on projects you didn't like to work on, and this is like you guys started a passion project that turned into something more than just like a few guys working on something. Now I'm sure you guys have beefed up hiring and stuff like that to meet the needs of what's going on. So I think as long as you guys keep that passion, I think the community just because I can only speak for myself in my community. I know we're just so jaded because we just deal with so many games that that people like to use words and BuzzFeed phrases and stuff like that. I'm like, I've heard this a million times. I know it's not going to be. I know you're marketing so I think you guys approach it.
I'm the marketing.
Yeah, exactly. This is the marketing right here. Yeah, exactly.
This is our entire marketing strategy. It's being
that's fine.
Actually, we have Grayson now. It's been an awesome help.
He's
helping us with the community stuff, and then hopefully he could start taking out more of this load.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so yeah, we you know, we're in that kind of the same jaded, but it's not like they have the big companies, they have different priorities and they have different incentives. So it's not like we're blaming them or anything. It's just, but they're run more as, you know, they have to risk management, like huge development costs. And for us, it's, you know, we kind of saw that as, oh, okay, it's, it could be a benefit, but it can also be like a double-edged sword, right? And so that's why we're trying to be very careful about, like, even like how we're going to grow the development team and stuff. It's like, oh, okay, we know that the expectations have just kind of appeared, but if we try to just manage that, we're probably going to fail horribly, and then it's just going to have much bigger consequences. So, you know, the whole thing is like, okay, the reason we left those corporate jobs was, like, we felt like, no. We felt like, okay, because the incentives are different, it's like, okay, there's motivation there is which is 100% part of our motivation, because this is part of the reality of running a business in this world, right? We have to make money. But that should have, the difference is that should be part of the picture, and it just seemed like that was taking up more and more the motivation and the incentives, right? It's like, okay, and so for us, another big thing was our motivation is sustainability, right? It's like, how do we grow it to become healthy for as long as possible, right? And so that's what we're talking about. It's like, so like you said, being passionate. That's another way you can motivate, you know, everyone.
Of course.
It's not just one thing. It's like, oh, okay, having something that you love to do, or you just like, oh, that's kick ass, you know. So, yeah.
I think that's, you know, I just think that's so important. So, you know, it's easy for us to sit as armchair devs and be like, you know, why isn't this? Why isn't this? Why isn't this? And then, you know, I'm sure if any of us actually tried to do it, we could probably relate.
I'm sure. Yeah, you definitely relate, but I'm sure. So I think that's what another thing that you know, developers should be better. It's that is tap into that because definitely there's that passion, right? The community, all this. So yeah, okay. Another thing, but if you're talking about roadmap,
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, you don't have to leak too much, just a little bit, just a snippet is fine.
Yeah, just a little, yeah. So I think another strategy is, you know, so, you know, in terms of, I'm going to frame it as like business strategy. So I think if we could get something like this work out in the future, it would be awesome. So, hey, yeah, companies can do a better job of tapping in and getting better community involvement for like content and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, Steam is doing a pretty good job with their like community marketplace and stuff, and like trying to figure out a way that we can kind of match up incentives with that. And then, yeah. So
Yeah,
again,
go ahead.
execution matters most, right?
Yeah. Well, like I think you guys wanna make sure whatever you put out, you're proud of. You know, I think that's important, especially since this is your first studio or your first game as a studio, right? So or do you have another one?
Oh no. So I mean, you know, we have different backgrounds. This is actually my second startup.
Okay.
But I mean, this
we all, I think it's important that you guys are, you know, still trying it, and like no one cares about this, but you know, I've been involved in a lot of startups before, and the majority of them don't work out. So I think if you're batting 50% on this, you're doing pretty good. But I wanted to kind of switch it up a little bit. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and you've been so generous answering questions. Are you guys you guys are actively playing when we're doing the playtest, or are you guys actively watching? I was curious to see what you guys
It's
favor.
a mix of all of that, yeah. So and then actively developing. So like so the design and the programming team probably have the least amount of opportunity to actually play.
Yes.
So I didn't really get to play that much. Maybe like 20 hours total last playtest. But and then the art team has a lot more freedom. I mean, they have backlogs of what they have to do every day, but they'll be watching, and then we encourage, hey, you go in and play. But again, we're located in the studios in Korea, so we're usually all on the
I was just hoping to get a chance to slay some of the devs. That's all I was hoping for. Maybe like a special title, something in the Discord.
So again, those are things that we, so what fans find cool, we find cool too.
Right.
And so that's what we want to accommodate. But but then always there's that clash with, okay, we got to run the company and we got to fix bugs and stuff. So but we do try to encourage, our devs, hey, when you get a chance to get in there and play.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think it's important for you guys to have your hands on the thing while other people are playing, because internal tests are only gonna, like you said, you guys are friends, so it's gonna be a little bit.
It's not the real thing.
It's not. Yeah, it's unorganic. Yeah, exactly. So my next question is, what's your favorite class to play?
I've been avoiding, like, people ask that every time, right? And in the past, like, I was very honest when I say I don't have one, because but I think more and more I'm just kind of I'm the boring. I just pick fighter.
Oh, you're like, defaulting to fighter. Okay, all right.
Yeah. But I mean, when the bard comes out.
That's the new main. There you go. There you go.
Maybe like 5 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys in chat, I'm gonna let you guys spitball some questions out, and anything that he's already answered, I'm gonna gloss over because you guys don't know how to do your due diligence. So just ask some questions, and if anyone asks something that hasn't been asked already that I think is worth asking, I will ask it. They've answered anti-cheat before, guys. They're working on their own in-house anti-cheat, and they're not opposed to getting like an easy anti-cheat on them. Talk about skill trees. He answered that with one peg. They said that they pushed that back right now regarding the talents and stuff. So that's pushed back. You guys want to do your research, guys. Portals to get to solo queue. Oh, we had this idea the other day. I was like, what if there were portals in the dungeon to get, like, I was trying, because when you guys announced the solo dungeon, I was like, hey, is there like portals in the regular dungeon to get to the solo dungeon? I was trying to think of a way to do it, but they already got their solo dungeon in, guys. We're going to see how it is, and then we can give them critiques after that. Professions, like regarding crafting and stuff, I guess. They're still working on the crafting, guys. That's regarding quest for NPCs, is that's probably not in this playtest, is it?
Yeah, that was again, we reassessed it. Yeah, we wanted to, but yeah, it's not gonna be.
I mean, that's a big undertaking. After trying your game, I actually tried Tarkov, because I'm like, I got to try the other extractors to see what they're about. And even though I'm not a huge fan of Tarkov's like actual combat compared to your guys' game, they have a lot of very in depth. I'm like, okay, this adds a lot of longevity. Just thinking about Dark and Darker with everything. I was like, okay, so we had these quests in Dark and Darker. People would probably play like an extra month because you would have to chase these quests. And so that's all stuff that I know you guys have. What about mining? It's not refined the way it is. It'll get tweaked, I'm sure. Guilds, they have planned down the line.
We did tweak it this time, so there's gonna be a little bit. It's like version 0.2 now.
Okay. So we're gonna get a little bit of refinement on the gathering and crafting, but not a ton.
Yeah, not a ton, not yet. Yeah.
Okay. New classes and races. Yeah, they've got a bunch of that stuff planned. There's gonna be a bunch of new weapons planned. Don't ask the general questions like that, guys, because that's. If you ask them what it's on their mind, they have it down the line planned. So stuff that's like
pretty much. Yeah.
Is anything changed in leveling? Oh, I had a question with that. You know how you get to level 15 and then you have all your abilities, and then you get to 20, you don't get anything extra? Were you thinking of maybe switching that? So at 20 you got your last unlock for perks? Because the levels from 15 to 20 don't really matter.
Yeah, not right now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a small thing. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Prestige. I'm just trying to find something good for you here. Has the trio map been altered? The trio map?
The normal map? Not really. I think so. We a couple more. I thought I saw Spud but a couple more modules have been added.
Okay, so we got a couple new pieces that are being involved.
Yeah,
okay.
It's nothing big. Yeah. Again, this time, in terms of the actual content, we weren't able to focus a lot on the content. Again, it was just hey, boy, and then quality of life stuff. Yeah, and so.
I'm sure they're gonna add more progression. How do they get funding to begin with? They're all millionaires, obviously. Can we get test dummies to possibly test our damage? That's planned. It's probably not going to be in this test. Oh yeah, there's the karma system. Positive karma incentives, or is it just the negative karma when you randomly group with people? You know what I mean? Because you said with one peg it was going to be a karma system, so if people are team killing or
Right now, the power to it is just different. You have a blue name. It's kind of hard to get those blue names.
Oh, okay.
It is negative in that it's not you get the red name. If you get a red name, if your name's red, you can no longer use the karma system until people. Your name gets normal again. Yeah, you can't report people.
So that's pretty much exactly from Ultima Online, the red and the blue karma system, right? Yeah. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, that was basically the main inspiration was Ultima Online. So that's why it'll say karma and fame. We did get to the fame part yet.
Okay, perfect. So you think you're gonna add fame to it, like when people kill certain mobs or kill X amount of people and stuff like that, it'll change it to like stop it.
That's why we give those little hints, but
yeah. Regarding gear, enchanting, special effects, or anything like that planned maybe down the line?
Yeah. So, I mean, the versions that you see right now, they're just they have a thing, a category that says it's buy, sell, and then crafting, and then they have services. That's what that services is going to be.
Okay, perfect. I mean, yeah. By the way, guys, if you didn't know. With those merchants, sometimes they're really nice and they take an idiot's face from a webcam and make it one of the merchants. So if you guys are at the tavern buying any alcohol, you might wonder why it looks like me, and that's because they did me in. By the way, like I hate to talk about it because I know it's like my ego and I don't mean to do that, but the fact that you guys put me like you're for just being involved at the beginning is like it's like the coolest thing that's like ever happened to me.
It's cool for us. Again, it just goes back to like, hey, this is cool. If you guys think it's cool, we probably think it's cool, and that's why we want to do it.
Yeah.
Like having Easter eggs, part of like this is what you make this history right in the game. So that's one of our goals with America is to have this kind of history with our players.
Yeah, it's very
and you're the
awesome.
Godfather. That's
Well, that's the thing. You call me the Godfather because I was the first one to stream it, and then SDF's like, "Would you be cool if we make you the Tavern Master?" I'm like, "Just pick one, SDF, whatever you want. Well, I'll do whatever." So no, it's just it's gonna happen to a cooler game. So, Terrence, I think we went over the questions quickly here. I'm sure that people need to eat lunch at the.
Luckily, it's been a little bit warmer. They're eating in the break room right now. So.
Yeah, no, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I know you guys are super busy. You got the test coming up. I'm sure everyone is very, very anxious Some easy glass, skill level based matchmaking, yes or no? They've already tried to take a stab at that with high roll. But
again, I think it's gonna make you times too big. So
yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna let you get out of here. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry I couldn't answer all the questions.
You can never answer all the questions. Yeah. No. Do you want to say anything in closing for everyone from the community?
I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for this like fantastic journey that we've gone on so far. And then we have a very heavy burden, like responsibility, and we'll do our best to make sure that we fill that role. We never thought. I mean, we knew we were doing something that had the possibility to become popular, but like right now it's just like, whoa, what's going on,
Yeah, I mean, look, that's life though, right? Yeah, now you've got this huge responsibility, and we're all depending on you. Obi-Wan Kenobi. You've got to give us a game we can play forever, Terrence, okay? No, honestly, thank you so much.
That's our goal, though.
Yeah, I know.
That's our goal.
I know. No, thank you so much.
Check it in, right?
Yeah. All right, I'll let you get out of here. Thank you so much, Terrence. I'll go field their questions for you. And I appreciate you guys so much. And we'll see you during the test, all right?
Yeah, we'll see you,
I need to put a countdown on stream.
Around 8 hours and 20 minutes from now.
Okay, 8 hours, 20 minutes. It's a date. We'll see you there. Thank you so much, Terrence.
Okay.
All right, bye.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my God. 8 hours and 20 minutes. Who's counting though? Not me. Not this guy. I'm not counting. Yo, guys, can I get some love for Terrence in the chat, please? Oh my God. What a legend. What a legend.